Welcome, everyone. My name is Jessica Clower, and I'm the curator here at the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame. Welcome to our tour of Racing at the Dawn of the United States, presented by Adirondack Trust Company. This is a small exhibit, but we have a lot to discuss, a lot to unpack. Throughout the tour, I'm going to be going through and highlighting different features of the exhibit, the inspiration kind of behind the scenes. So feel free if you have any questions about my process or why I selected something else, feel free to ask me throughout the tour. This is an open discussion, and I'm very excited to share it with you. So I started my career with the National Park Service. I worked at Independence Hall National Historical Park in Philadelphia, and Independence National Historical Park in Philadelphia. Sorry, the hall is not part of the official name. And but that's where the Declaration was adopted, where the Constitutional Convention took place. So this time period is very important to me. I love it, and I was really excited to be able to bring my experience there, as well as my undergraduate degree in history, together to make this exhibit, combine those passions along with my current role at this museum, and talk about horse racing. And so it was really, with the founding of our nation 250 years ago, I wanted to celebrate it, but also do something different and unique, and not reiterate what we have in our colonial gallery, but touch upon certain concepts that there will be some overlap between our colonial gallery and our pre-Civil War gallery, but also bring some new items out that we haven't had on view or haven't had on view in a while, and just have fun with it and present it in a way that is different than some of the other 250 exhibits that you'll see throughout this year. So we're really excited that we started strong right in January. So thank you for all coming out for it. It's going to be a great year. And so one of the first things that one of our first guests noticed was that we did something a little new, something different. We put the title of the exhibit right above the doorway here. So it brings you, the idea was that it would entice you up the stairs, bring you up, and you knew exactly what you were going to see in this gallery here. I tried to use font that was reminiscent of the era, but also very readable, because I'm sure when you come over to some of these handwritten notes here, some of them are absolutely beautiful, some of the lettering, but some of it's a little bit more challenging to read. So I did transcribe the handwritten notes and letters featured in the exhibit. Hopefully well. If you notice any errors, please let me know. So when I started this exhibit, I really wanted to pull from our collection as much as possible and highlight, pieces that people haven't seen or haven't seen in a while. And so, and I didn't want to take away from the gallery. So one of the pieces that I originally pulled from our collection storage to look at was this amazing advertisement for Bold Britain. Not a very well-known horse, but I felt like it was so beautiful, and it inspired this sire advertisement, inspired our panel here. So I photographed it, put it into Adobe Photoshop, removed all the backgrounds and all of that, all the text, and created our panel here. And I worked with our exhibit design company, Empire Exhibits, to make it look like it's, this textured background. I wanted it to look like it's posted on the wall, that, when you first come in, you may not immediately, you'll be like, oh, this is part of the exhibit. And then you're like, oh, wait, this is the introductory text. This is the panel. This is where you're drawn to. So I hope that as you came in, you were drawn to this panel and that you were introduced to the exhibit with it. So the first formal race course was established in 1665 on Long Island, Newmarket Race Course, named after the Newmarket Race Course in England. We actually have a wonderful painting of it in our colonial gallery by John Wooten. And I don't have the first recorded trophy to be presented at that race course, but I do have this incredible replica that was gifted to the museum from the New York Racing Association, celebrating 300 years of racing in 1996. So I did take one item. If you have been to the museum before, you may have noticed that this item is typically in our colonial gallery, but I felt like it was so important to bring over here and have on display so you can see what an early racing trophy looks like. We also have this incredible uh, Richmond Cup from 1779. It's a British racing trophy, and it's on loan from Naira. And just to kind of show you like a few examples of the time. And the last one is actually related to one of the foundational horses of the, one of the foundational brood mares, Salima. So we're going to talk about her later. But I put these three trophies together to kind of ground the exhibit, bring in different aspects, and bring people up into the space when you see not only the title, but you see these gorgeous trophies and a variety as well. I always try to include in the exhibit a variety of materials and pieces so that you see paintings, prints, different works on paper, that we have, books, trophies. So I try to incorporate as many materials as possible to add a little bit of variety, so it's not just the same, size, the same item over and over and over again, so that adds a little bit of interest as you go along. Speaking of interest as you go along, this is probably my favorite piece in the exhibit. He is the father of the turf in Britain. This is Tregonwell Frampton. This painting is also by John Wooten, and he might look a bit familiar to you. If we wanted to take a walk over here, if anybody, or yeah, I guess if some people wanted to take a walk over and look at this painting here. All right, does anybody notice anything from this painting? What's featured in here? I'll do some interactive. Yeah, his dog. Yep. Yep. So he was into cockfighting, and then right up there is his horse Dragon, who is his favorite. And one of the things I thought was really interesting, like even though we have that one on view all the time, this is actually the depiction that you see of him in most British racing like publications. So here's one of him. I thought it was really fascinating. I was like, oh my gosh, ours is depicted in so many different wonderful publications, was copied, was really the depiction of Tregonwell Frampton. And so he was the keeper of the King's Running horses for 30 years. He served as a racehorse trainer to 4 British monarchs. So a really interesting person, very eccentric. People would comment about how he presented himself in court, but he loved what he did. And I felt like it was really important to talk about this racing history. Like he's recognized as one of the early racehorse trainers, and because we were British subjects, during the colonial era, we were closely linked. We have, the breeding operations, the racehorses. We were importing them from England, so it was a very closely tied community. So it was really interesting. I felt like to explore that early history, and then here we have some of the prominent English sires at the time. So we have Eclipse at the center, whose descendants include Native Dancer and, Northern Dancer and Sunday Silence. And then at the bottom here, we have Diomed, who was the sire of Sir Archie and American Eclipse. So just to kind of get, this was a really interesting piece that was a recent acquisition. It came to our collection in 2024 from the California Thoroughbred Foundation. And so I was really excited when I realized how many important sires there were and how it would really add interest to this exhibit. So you can see like how you have these imported horses coming over, being, promoted, that they are really, this is this link between Britain and here, at the time of our nation's founding, of course, yeah, as we're all British subjects, but and how it kind of shifts. Like people were being called to action, that they're supporting the cause, the patriot cause, and so it's really interesting to me that as things kind of start shifting, you have this new, as you like go into the 1800s, you have this like new emergence of more like American horse racing, and you have the movement away from the longer heat racing to the shorter dash racing, and that's what you see here in this Lexington street scene from the 1790s. This is a wonderful depiction that it's a later depiction from the 1970s, 1975, that was originally commissioned as a mural in Lexington. So this is on loan from the Keeneland Library, and it just shows this nice, like, I felt like it was really great to include a nice vibrant scene that you can experience like what racing felt like at the time, this dash race. And then we also have this wonderful letter that's in our collection that describes, it's just a general letter, but it talks about the races at Dartmouth too. So you have, people going to these races. I couldn't find any other information about that the racing that occurred there, but it was happening. There's sanctioned and unsanctioned races going on. So really interesting. And because of so thinking about the display, one thing you might notice in this area, because these are works on paper, I keep the light levels much lower. These pieces are all in behind UV filters and plexiglass. And then this piece here, I decided that it was too delicate to frame, and so that's why I selected to put in the case. I actually put new. I have these great pieces talking about sires early. I have the Tregnwell Frampton piece, and I was like, looking through our painting collection, and I'm like, how can I incorporate more pieces in the collection? And I was like, well, I really want to have American eclipse, so I have American eclipse opposite of the British eclipse. But I also, while I was looking for this painting, we have it all cataloged, don't worry, everything is perfectly organized, and you know exactly what screen to pull out from, to see it. But these didn't register in my initial search because they're copies after the originals. And so I was really excited when I pulled the screen and saw them, and I was like, oh my gosh, these have to be included. So these are both gifts from the Taylor family, which is really interesting. So you have John Taylor III and Samuel Ogle. And so he was the governor of Maryland, founder of Bel Air stud, which, is very notable still to. And then John Taylor was part of a prominent family in Virginia. And so, they had some wonderful horses, but he also served for the Patriot cause during the American Revolution. He was in the light horse infantry. And I found a fun little quote that said, John Marshall, who was a Revolutionary War veteran and famed Supreme Court justice, noted that the sport of turf had served as a training ground for the Virginia cavalry. So a really fun connection there. Also, what I felt like it was really important to note was that John Taylor in 1791, he inherited 13 plantations in Maryland and Virginia on which more than 500 people were enslaved. So, thinking about the time period, thinking about horse racing, that many horses in the United States were taken care of and ridden by enslaved persons. And so I really wanted to make sure to note that despite the rhetoric of freedom and liberty during the Revolution, the founding generation failed to address the injustice of slavery, and the institution endured until the American Civil War. So, he was. It was a great opportunity to be able to talk about this as well because he, was influential in horse racing, but also enslaved more than 400 or 500 people, which is incredible. Like, it just blows my mind. So thinking about, these, he continued to have horses after the American Revolution, but at the same time, public interest and support for horse racing was waning in the early 1800s. So you have people talking about, the morality of things, and one of the things that they talked about was the morality of horse racing. Is it, and so this was being discussed, and during that time, and we have this wonderful editorial from the Moralist on the evils of horse racing from the New York Weekly Museum. This is a loan from Keeneland Library from 1808. And so, so you have these restricted laws starting to be passed in several states. And so in New York, there was New York banned racing statewide in 1802, and that actually continued until 1821. It wasn't strictly enforced, but in 1821, the Union Course opened on Long Island, and among the winners of the day was American Eclipse. So a nice little link here. Now, this portrait of American Eclipse was done by Edward Troy a little bit later. So he traveled to the Union Course in 1834 and was painting horses and heard that American Eclipse was nearby. So he went and painted the famed horse. And here, this is a wonderful depiction here. We have another depiction of American Eclipse in our pre-Civil War gallery that I encourage you to check out when you come to visit next time. But I absolutely love this depiction. I was really excited to be able to bring it out and show everyone because it's gorgeous. And when we were talking about that third trophy earlier, his descendant imported the great mare Selima, and then Selima was purchased by John Taylor III. So we have like a lot of things being incorporated here. And then so the Selima Stakes were named after her. And so it's run annually at Laurel Racecourse. So I thought it was really great to be able to include this piece as like more of a callback to this wonderful mare, and be able to celebrate that early horse racing that's still being shown today. And then finally, as we're moving over to the 1820s, so we have John Stuart Skinner, and he, was a publisher, and he was actually on the same ship as Francis Scott Key when he wrote the Star Spangled Banner. So, a patriotic man who also published about agriculture and sports. So he attended a race in 1829 in the Tree Hill Course in Virginia, and was really impressed by what he saw and decided to include it in his publication. So we have the American Turf Registered Sporting Magazine here that he published and edited. And I decided to have it open to a page. It's an editorial, and it's celebrating George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and their contributions to the sport. So they, and then he makes this claim. So he was actually the person who wrote it, even though it just has an initial. People have written about it afterwards, but the author was Thomas Peter, who was married to Martha Parke Custis, one of the 4 grandchildren of Martha Washington. And so he was a businessman who enjoyed horse racing and would go to horse racing in Lafayette Square Course in Washington, D.C. So these were all like in 14th Street. So all these race courses that were in Washington, D.C. that some of our founding fathers went to. And, it's kind of, it's interesting. So he makes a claim that he saw Magnolia, who was foaled at Mount Vernon, who's a descendant of Selima, and raced for George Washington and defeated Thomas Jefferson's colt. So at the Alexandria Jockey Club in 1790. But George Washington, who knows if he actually saw it, but it's a really fun story, a really fun piece. I love how this is like a fun, I felt like it brought the exhibit back around to our founding and our founding fathers, and celebrating, the anniversary of, our founding 250 years ago. And George Washington was known to attend race meetings in Annapolis, Alexandria, Williamsburg, and Thomas Jefferson rarely missed meets at the National Race Course. So, racing was such a big part of our nation. It was a huge sport at the time, and I just really wanted to celebrate it in this exhibit, maybe bring some, new things to light, and really share this history. So I don't know if I sped through that too fast, but so yeah, these were broad selections. It was really exciting being able to put this all together. I was really excited that we were able to bring out our collection, that we have loans from Keeneland Library, that we have loans from Charles B. Waite, that we have loans from Kate. And I think it really, and Naira, of course. And I was very happy with how it all came together, that we explored, the links, the early foundational sires, how racing changed over time, how it was thought about in culture. And I hope everyone came out of the exhibit feeling the same way and took away the message that I was trying to get across. So thank you so much for coming.